Sorry. Let's see where we're going to start today. On the bottom of Minbay's 52b, the very last line. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's supposed to be learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Mishnah, we said that if an ox falls into a pit, if it falls forward, then he's chayiv. Falls backwards, and he's pater. I'm a Rav. On the bottom line of 52. So if it falls forwards, he's chayiv. Falls backwards, he's pater. I'm a Rav. Rav explains this that lefanav mamish. That
head first.
Head first. That's what it means. It means head first. We're going to see in a moment that the reason why if he falls head first, this is Rav's opinion. Rav holds that the reason why a person is obligated to pay for damages in the pit is because he owns the bad ear that's in the pit. When he falls head first, that's when he's going to have the bad ear. La'acharav, we're going to see that in a moment. La'acharav, if he falls backwards, the acharav mamish, that's because his head is up, and that's why he's going to be pater. The zev is ebebar, but both of these are in a pit, yeah.
This only applies to animals, or could it be applied also to humans?
Well, a human is always pater and a bar, right? Except if it's damages, but for death, he's going to be pater.
I thought the human should have seen the boar.
That's another discussion. That's another discussion. The human should see the bar. That's a discussion that's coming later, where we're going to say that maybe it was even the animal should see the bar, right? We're going to say that it was either at night or, but that's another discussion for an exemption. Okay. Rav l'taimei, Rav follows his reasoning, like we said, Amar Rav, that Rav says, bar shechayv alav Torah. When the Torah says that you chayev on a pit, what's it talking about? It's talking about it caused damage because of the lack of ear, and not because of the impact. Shmuel explains the Mishnah like this: the bar, if it fell into a bar, bein lefana bein ma'acharav, it doesn't matter how it fell in, frontwards or backwards, it's going to be chayev. And Shmuel follows his reasoning. Damar lahavle v'kolshken lechabate. Shmuel says that both are both causes of death should be chayiv, whether it's the bad ear or because of the impact. We said that it fell backwards because of the banging. That it heard the sound of the banging. So what's the case that he's going to be pater? According to Shmuel. According to Rav, he's pater because his head is up, he's able to breathe. According to Shmuel, doesn't matter. He still hit the floor, and so what case is it going to be pater? He tripped over the pit. He ended up falling on the other end of the pit, on the other side. I mean, it's out of the pit. Outside the pit. So what comes out now is interesting, that when someone trips on something or if someone falls in, he's only going to be chayiv if he actually hits the object that he tripped on. If he falls into a pit, the owner of the pit is only chayiv if he hits in the actual pit. But if he falls outside of the pit, it's going to be exempt. That was when we said that we learned from a pit that if someone leaves an obstacle in a public area, that and it causes damage, it's going to be chayiv. That's only if he trips on the obstacle and bangs on the obstacle. But if he trips on the obstacle and hits the floor, it's going to be exempt. That's not the pit. That wasn't the pit. So over here, falls outside of the pit, it's going to be exempt. That's Shmuel's explanation. Eisvei, the Gemara's a question. Bebar bein lefanav bein la'acharav chayev tiyuv the Rav. A brisa that says that in the pit itself, doesn't matter how he falls, frontwards or backwards, the owner of the pit is going to be chayev. what it appears to be saying. So Zakash and Rab says only if he falls forward in the pit is he going to be chayav, not if he falls backwards.
Is this saying forward or backwards, or is this saying in front or behind the pit? Acharei.
Well, I think nafal lefanav.
No, that's the other one. It says benafal. The nikalo go benafal acharei. Lefanav ben achar.
You could read it both ways.
Yeah,
you could read it both ways, but it says bibar.
Right.
It's in the pit, so it sounds like it's in the pit. Okay. So Amar Rav Chisda is going to explain this brisa that according to Rav Chisda is a grandson-in-law of Rav, I think, because Rav Chisda, I think Rav's daughter married Rav Chanan Barabba, I think, and Rav Chanan Barabba's daughter married Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda's daughter married Rava.
In the family.
Yeah. Anyway, Rav Chisda answers for Rav that you see, why is it going to be chayav forwards or backwards? Because Rav agrees that what's the reason why he's exempt out when it falls into a pit and causes impact if he falls backwards? Why does Rav say that you're exempt? Because you don't own the floor of the pit. You didn't even put it there. The floor of the pit was always there. You just took stuff out. The only thing you caused to be there was the bad air. But if you actually own the pit, so he says, no matter what, whichever way you look at it, if it dies because of the bad air, it's your bad air. In other words, you caused it to be there. If it's from impact, also your impact, because you own the bar. So that whole machlokes that we have Rav and Shmuel about havla or chabata, that's only in a rishus arabim. But if it's in your rishus, obviously you had to make your rishus ownerless and keep the bar. That's what we're talking about. Otherwise, people shouldn't have been there.
I'm not sure what here they add that the person dug the pit in his own property, and then he renounces ownership of like the area around the bore, but he still keeps ownership of the bore.
Exactly.
Why does
yeah.
Why do that?
Why do they add that? Because if you don't, then you're always going to be exempt. Because you shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been in the property. Yeah. Rabba. Okay, so we have the teretz for the brisa according to Rav Chisda's teretz, talking about that he owns the pit, not he made the area around it. Owns. Rabba says, what are we talking about here? The havla, the ahani bay. Talking about over here that even though it says that he fell forwards, he fell backwards, all of them is high, but in all cases, he actually fell forwards first. And then the problem is what happened at the end? Did he flip over? And he hit the bottom. How did he hit the bottom? Well, whether he hit the bottom head first or hit the bottom back first, the fact that he had, when he was falling head first, he already had the bad air. That's already affecting him that he can't recover from the fall. And so even though at the end he hit the bottom and the back first, but because he had fallen head first at the beginning, so he already has the bad air.
So is that what Lefanav and Akrav means?
Forwards and backwards, yeah.
But I know it means forwards and backwards, but I'm trying to understand what Ligomore is getting at here. Forwards, does that mean it hit heads first, or it hit rear end first? I just I don't understand.
It must mean how he hit the bottom.
Oh, he hit the bottom.
Yeah, that's what it seems. Yeah. Doesn't say clearly, but that's what it sounds like. Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef says, Hacha beniske bar b'shar askinan. Rav Yosef says that we can redo this brisa, we can fix the whole thing. It's not a problem with Rav. What we're going to do is we're going to say when it says when he falls into the pit, whether forwards, whether backwards, he's chayiv. We didn't say who's chayiv. We're not talking about the balabar. We're talking about the balashar. The owner of the ox, has to pay for the damages that he caused to the pit, and that doesn't matter if he fell head first or he fell back first. My Neo. What is this? What's going on over here? Shivish's Mema. We're talking about that he caused the water to get dirty. That the owner of the ox has to pay the owner of the pit for the damage that he caused to the water. Yeah, you didn't see this coming. Yeah.
It's almost as good as a joke for the show.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
Tani, it's exactly the opposite of what everyone's thinking. Tani Rab Chananya, the Siui L'Rav. Rav Chananya taught a brisa that supports Rav. It says, V'nafal, he fell into the pit, that's quoting the pasuk. Achiyipal derech nefila, that he has to fall in the way of falling, which means that the trips head first. All of this is talking about in the pit. Okay, so the brisa actually says the way Rav learns. Okay. The next Gemara is a sugya and discussing the opinion of Reb Nassan. We've mentioned Reb Nassan before, and over here what it's going to be referring to is that when there's multiple causes for the damage, how do you get the payment? If Reb Nassan's original opinion was if an ox gores another ox, and when he gores the other ox, the victim ox falls into a pit. So do you charge the owner of the pit? Do you charge the owner of the ox? Do you charge them both? Like, how do you go about this? Reb Nassan's opinion is that you can charge everyone. In the Rabbanan's opinions, you charge the original cause. That was what happened. Now, in our Gemara, we have a pit. Someone dug a pit. You have another guy in the pit that's a worker that's banging around and causing all this noise, and it frightens the ox. The ox ends up falling into the pit because of the noise. So the question is, the Gemara starts off, Amar Mar, we learned, if he falls forward into the pit because of the sound of the banging, of the digging, is chayev amai name a kaira garamla. Why should be chayev? Let's say that the person that was banging, he caused the damage. And the one that's banging, he can't make him chayev because he didn't hit the ox. He hit the wall of the pit. So he's just a geirim. He's just a cause. You could say maybe chayev b'dei or something, but definitely not direct chayev, not in court. So if you can't cause, if he's the one that caused the damage, when you
call
from the sound of the banging, of the digging.
And what's the name of kaira garam?
Nema, let's say kaira, that the one that's digging garam la, he's the one that caused it. No, it was a guy that dug a pit. He's already went on vacation. But he said there's another guy that's in the pit that's putting plaster in.
So Nema Kerr is talking about the original guy.
No, okay. Is the new guy, the guy that's in the pit.
What's
right now? Right now, there's a guy in the pit that's making a lot of noise. Right. He's banging around. He's just fixing up the pit. The one that actually dug it 10 tfachim, he's not here right now. He's called the balabar.
Right. So who's
now? There's a guy in the pit that's banging.
That's kol hakriya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
so it's kaira garam.
So let's say that the Nema kaira, the one that's banging now, is what's causing the damage. Follow?
No. Kol is a sound.
Yeah.
So the
Nema kaira, the worker that's making the sound, is the causer, is the one that's causing the damage.
That's the first one.
No, that's the second one. Yeah, let's do like this. Ruvain digs a pit. All right.
Okay,
Ruvain digs a pit.
Okay.
And he goes back home. He's 10 tfachim. It's already a full pit to be chai. Right. Comes along Shimon and says, "Oh, that's a nice pit. Let me go chisel away at it and see what I can, whatever. I don't know what." So he goes into the pit and he starts banging away. Now there's an ox that's walking by and he hears a frightening noise because of Shimon. Because of Shimon. Yeah. So he falls into the pit. The ox falls into the pit. So we say that the owner of the pit has to pay.
Meaning Ruvain.
Ruvain. Yeah. Ruvain is chai. Now the Gemara is asking, why is Ruvain chai?
That's not kol hakriya.
Oh, he fell in because of the kol hakriya. the owner of the pit, Reuven, has to pay because he dug the pit. Now the Gemara is asking the question that why should Reuven pay? It should be Shimon. He's the one that caused the ox to get frightened, the buck or whatever, and then it falls into the pit. So it's really Shimon's fault that it fell into the pit. Now Shimon, you can't really charge because Shimon's just going to say, look, you're going to charge me if I sneeze and someone gets scared. Yeah, that's not, you can't charge me because I banged the hammer. I was doing some work.
It says Mikala Kriya, then it's wrong.
No, Nafal Lefan of Mikala Kriya. What the reason why it fell into the pit was because, I know what you're asking. You're asking a much deeper question. The Gemara before said that if you fall forward or if you fall backwards, there's a big difference. Now, what you're asking is like this.
Right.
You're asking, if you fall forward and you fall backwards, there's a difference. What does it have to do with Kala Kriya? If he fell because of the banging or it wasn't because of the banging? Because what does it have to do? The difference falling forwards and falling backwards has to do with if he has the Havel according to Rav, or according to Shmuel outside the pit. Why do you mix in this other story that someone's banging and he fell in? That's a different question. I ignored that when we were learning it. But now we're saying, okay, he fell in because of the banging. Why that's relevant, I don't know, to the forwards or backwards. But
so this new opinion, it's not Shmuel or Rav, is it? Because this opinion seems to be saying you dig a pit, you're liable. End of discussion. He doesn't care who does what afterwards.
Yeah, but according to Rav and Shmuel, they were also saying you dig a pit, you're chayav. The only thing is that it depends. Rav says you only chayav for the Havel, and Shmuel said you're chayav for the impact as well. Now what we're saying is that what about the guy that's making noise? Shouldn't he be the one that's causing the damage? And if he's the one that's causing the damage, then the owner of the pit should be pater. I know he made the pit there, but the fact is you can't make him. Maybe the animal never would have fallen in without the guy that's making the noise. So let's exempt the guy that dug the pit, and we'll also have to exempt the guy that's making the noise. Name a kaira garma. Okay, Amar Rav Simi Barashi Hamani Reb Nasani. He explains that it's the opinion of Reb Nasan. Reb Nasan says Damar Baal Abar Hezekah Ka'avid, because the fact is the damage was done by the pit. And if you can't collect from the guy that's making the noise, then you're able to collect from the guy that dug the pit. You'll see the original case in a moment. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. An ox that gores another ox and pushes him into a pit. The owner ox is obligated. The owner of the pit is exempt. You look at who started. Okay, Reb Nassan says, Nassan says, you look at the end, you come to the scene at the end, you see what happened, so you try to collect like that. You also look at the end scene, not just the beginning scene. So Reb Nassan says that you can collect from both. You can collect from the shar, even though you look at the end scene, but you see what you can get from the original, and then you take it to the end scene. End scene is also going to be responsible.
Collect from the pit because it's harder than to prove that the noise was the one that caused it.
So according to Reb Nassan, you're going to collect from the pit, because when you try to get the guy to collect from the noise, he says, I made noise. I did not do the direct damage. I didn't do anything. So I'm not paying anything. Because I was blowing my trumpet or something and the animal got scared, I'm not paying for that. So what we do is, according to Reb Nassan, we go to the pit and we collect from the pit, because we say, hey, we see the oxes in the pit. According to the Rabbanan, the Rabbanan would say no. The owner of the pit says, look, my pit was very clear. No animal would ever fallen in. It's all because of the guy that was blowing. Go collect from him. You can't collect from him, so tough luck.
But that's hard. I think it's hard to prove. In the case where one ox scores another, you could see it has the gore marks, and then that goring was one that caused it to fall into the pit.
That's the Rabbanan. Right. That's what the Rabbanan say. You see the gore, you see it got gored, charge you charge the ox. Right. Over here, we're gonna end up with pata. I'm sorry?
I'm surprised that in Jewish law you don't need a fence around a boar and only
do.
around the person's roof.
Actually, it's not the fence around the bar. You need to cover the bar. You need to
Okay.
cover it or fill it in. Yeah.
So maybe it should have been covered.
That's right.
So
That's why
the owner of the boar should be chayav.
the owner of the bar should be chayav. But over here, he's claiming that the ox never would have fallen, according to the Rabbanan. He's claiming the ox never would have fallen in if not
Right, I
for the person
understand.
that was digging.
But he doesn't know the reasons of which someone would fall in.
Right. But according to the Rabbanan, he would still be exempt. He would still be exempt. He would say that it wasn't absolute negligence from my part, even though it was. But the ox wouldn't have fallen in without for that extra sound. Yeah, it's similar to being gored and being pushed in by another force. Okay, now the Gemara has a question. So we answered our question that we're following the opinion of Reb Nosson. Now the Gemara asks, but Tanya, but we have a brayser of Nosson Aimer Balabar Mishalim Gimel Chalak and Balasharavia. Very interesting. We just said that according to Reb Nosson, that if an ox scores another ox and it falls into a pit, you have to charge both the owner of the pit and the owner of the ox half the damage. The perpetrator and the pit pay half. And we have a brayser that says that the owner of the pit pays 3/4, and the owner of the ox only pays 1/4. What's going on? Gemara says like kasha, habitam habamuad. Depends. The ox that gored was a tam. So how much is he supposed to pay? Half. But now that there's another partner here, he's going to pay 1/4, and the owner of the pit is going to pay 3/4. The Gemara says, "Batam ma'ikasaver." What's going on over here? 1 second. What do we actually hold? Ikasaver haikula hezei covered, haikula hezei covered. Do you want to say that both the ox and the owner of the pit did the entire damage? Is that how you want to view it? So Hai Mishal and Palga, Hai Mishal and Palga. If they both did the whole damage, why don't they each split the damage? We know that the owner of the ox is a tam. He has to pay Chatzi Nezek, so he'll pay Chatzi Nezek. And the owner of the pit will pay the other half. They both did the whole thing. Because of Hai Palga Zay covered, Hai Palga Zay covered. If you want to say that they each did half, so Balabar Mishalem Palga. The owner of the pit should pay half. Okay. And Balashar, the owner of the ox, should pay Revia, should pay 1/4. Because he only has to pay half the damage that he caused. He caused half, so he has to pay half of half. How much is that? 1/4. Vidach Revia Mafsid, the owner of the victim, the victim ox, should lose out on 1/4. Right? It's good logic.
Instead of losing half, we only lose 1/4.
No, instead of getting he should be getting all of it, right? But there's a pit, so he gets paid the other half, right?
For the pit, he only gets half.
Right. If it wasn't for the pit, he would only get half. Now he's getting 1/4, we're saying. So Amar Rava explains, Reb Nosson Dainahu B'nachas Lom Kedadina. Reb Nosson is a Dayan, and he is able to go to the depths of the law. Leilam Kasavar, really he holds high kula zay covered, high kula zay covered. Everyone did the entire damage. Okay. If everyone did the entire damage, so then why don't we have the owner of the ox pay half? He did the whole damage, let him pay half of it. Which is, so it says, why is it 3/4 and 1/4? Because the owner of the ox says to the owner of the pit, what am I gaining by your partnership here? Which means that if you're going to pay half and I'm going to pay half, I'm really paying my full price, and you're only paying half. You're getting a partner, and I'm not getting a partner because I had to pay half anyway. Because he's a Tom. So I'm supposed to be gaining from this partnership. So I want to only pay half and you pay 3/4. Okay. Why is that a correct claim? I mean, I hear the claim, but why is that a correct claim? I don't know. could say Leilam Kasavar High Palga Zekavad by Palga Zekavad. Really, they each did half. The Kakashlach Balabar Mishalim Palga Balashar Mishalim Revia Vidach Revia Mafsid. You could say if they all did half, then why does he get the 100% of the payment? He should only get 75%. He should get 50% from the owner of the pit and 25% from the owner of the ox. And he should lose the other half. This because the owner of the ox over here, and we're talking about the owner of the victim ox, says to the owner of the pit, all I know is I found my pit, my ox in the bottom of your pit. At katalta, you killed it. If I can get any money from the owner of the ox that pushed him in, then good. I'm going to get paid for, you're going to have to pay for that. So which means that really they're talking about that they each did the whole thing or half. What are we saying over here? They each did half the damage. So why doesn't he why does he have to pay? Each did half. So then why does the Balabar have to pay 3/4? The answer is because he found it in his pit. So he's going to charge him for the whole damage, storage. For the whole, it's not storage, but it's going to put all the blame on him unless he can get some money from the other guy. Okay. Now what comes out now is that according to the Rabbanan, though, he would be exempt, which would mean back to our case that when the guy is banging on the pit, he's not going to be able to get money from the owner of the pit. The owner of the pit's going to say that it was the guy that was banging. He's going to go to the guy that's banging. The guy that's banging says, I only caused it. I didn't actually do it directly. So he's not going to get anything. It's only according to Reb Nosson that says that you go to the guy that was banging, you say, can you pay up? He says, I'm not paying. I only caused it. It was indirect. It was a grama. He says, okay, so now you go to the owner of the pit. That was Reb Nosson's view, and you get the rest of the money from the owner of the pit. Amar Rava says, let's say, Reb Nosson's case was when an ox caught another ox and knocked him into a pit. Rava comes in and says, if you put a stone at the edge of a pit and an ox trips over it and falls into the pit, so then what's al at the edge of the
not al.
Right. It's what happened is it's because of someone stumbled over the rock. It fell into very similar to getting gored by the ox.
Right.
The reason why he's in the pit is because he stumbled on the. Some of these cases you have to imagine with cartoons. You know, like the cartoons are always like violent. Tripping and falling and getting thrown around. So okay, so this is a machlekes Reb Nosson v'Rabbanan. Okay, Gemara says pshita. It's obvious. It's exactly the same case. The ox scored, or a rock pushed him in. But the Gemara says, "Ma the teimasim damer balabar the balashar over there." The balabar can tell to the balashar, which means the one that the gored. Ilav bira didi tura dida chavikatale. The reason why over there, the owner of the ox has to pay is because the owner of the pit says to the owner of the ox, "Look, I know it fell into my pit, but if not from if my pit wasn't there, your ox would have killed it anyway. It happens to be that it gored it and it went flying and fell into my pit. But even if my pit wasn't there, it would have died. But over here, but over here, the owner of the rock can tell to the owner of the pit, I know that I put a stumbling block there, but it wouldn't have died. It would have stumbled over it, and it would have gotten up and walked away. It wasn't a 10 tefachim pit. It would have walked away. So it's all your pit that caused the damage. It's not my rock. By the ox, he could have died from the goring. But over here, it's just he tripped over a little thing. What would have happened? He would have gotten up and walked away. Kamash Malan could be. Kamash, it would have limped away. Kamash Malan Darmalei, Ilav Evan, Le'evan Afalabir. The owner of the pit says, yeah, you may be right. Maybe right, it could have gotten away. But if not for your stone, it never would have fallen into the pit in the first place. So
because he would have seen it.
Because it could be saw it the whole time. Right. Okay. Itmar. We have a statement. Shar b'shar p'suli hamikdasim shenagchu. What do you have there? Itmar. What does it say? Isamar. It changes the vowels. Itmar. Okay. If you have an ox and you have an ox that's a p'suli hamikdashim. P'suli hamikdashim. I'm sorry. That's a it was a carbon, but it had a mum. What you're supposed to do with this is you're supposed to redeem it, but you didn't redeem it yet. So in accord, they take out these words that it's a b'char. Abaya amar mishalim chatzi nezek, Ravina amar mishalim revia nezek. Machlekes over here. You see, both of these oxen teamed up against another ox, bullying, and they gored this other ox.
Wait, an ox can bull?
So the two bulls bullied this other ox. So so Abaya says that you pay chatzi nezek, and Ravina says they pay each a quarter. Well, not each. The sharp p'suli hamikdashim doesn't have to pay anything. The ox that was a sacrifice doesn't have to pay because the pasuk says shareyeyo, and this is not considered shareyeyo. It's not considered only an ox of your friend is going to be chayav. So what's going to happen here? Yeah, what's going to happen here is that since according to Reb Nassan, what you can't collect from one, you can collect from the other. So over here, Abaya says you get chatzi nezek. Ravina says you get a quarter of the nezek, all from the regular ox, not from the sharp p'suli hamikdash. Both cases are talking about it was a tam animal. So the one that says chatzi nezek, I get it. He gored, he pays chatzi nezek. The one that says revia nezek, that's because he only gored half. So why did the other one say that you get that he pays half? He should only pay a quarter. They're both of them gored. They're both tam and they both gored. So hakarabanan or hakarab nasan. The one that says that you pay a quarter, that's the Rabbanan's view that says you can only collect the amount that he was obligated. And the Reb Nassan says that we can't collect from this one, you can collect from that one, so he has to pay the full half, which is talking about a tam. Iba Yasema, we can say there's a machlekes Abaya and Ravina. What is the machlekes? Haba kerabanan, they're both following the Rabbanan. Haba tam, haba muad. The one that says that you pay a quarter, that's because it was a tam. The one that says that you pay half, that's because it was a muad. Really, you should have gotten the whole payment, but the other ox is a sharp p'suli hamikdashim, can't collect from it. Ikadamri, there are those that say that Abaya himself, Abaya amar chatzi nezek, Ravina amar kula nezek. Abaya says chatzi nezek, Ravina didn't say a quarter, he says everything, pay the whole thing. Both cases is a muad. Akarabanan, akarab nasan. The Abaya would follow. Abaya, now we're switching. Before Abaya was Reb Nassan. Abaya would follow the Rabbanan that says you only pay half, and Ravina that says you have to pay the whole nezek, the whole damage, is because he's following Reb Nassan that says, well, you can't collect from this one, you can collect from that one. Iba Yasema. Well, we could say it differently. Haba Reb Nassan. Everyone is Reb Nassan. B'muad. When do you pay? When does the Ravina say you pay the whole thing? Because it was a muad. Haba tam. When Abaya says you pay half, that's because it was talking about a tam, in which only has to pay half. Amar Rava. Okay, get ready. You sure?
No. Excuse me, did we ever establish that an ox is a
bull?
Yeah, it's a bull, or is it just a kind of?
Okay, that was last week.
An ox is a bull, right?
Ox is a castrated bull.
Oh no, that's only in modern language,
So
not in
this language. What is it?
No, it's just ox, just a shark. It's probably it could be male or female, but it's in between its first and second year.
Oh, so it's the age.
Yeah, it's the age.
But it's not, the sex isn't clear.
No,
it could be a cow.
Yeah,
they all had horns in those days.
Yeah. Amarava, Sharva Adam Shadachfu Labar. An ox and a person that pushed someone else into a pit. Now let's see. It's a little bit unclear. In cahoots, yeah. The two of them together. Giving a good idea to make cartoons from Baba Kamma.
Yeah.
Le'inyan Nizakin. When it comes to damages, Kulan Chayav, everyone's going to be obligated, both the ox and the person and the pit. We have three damagers here.
I would love
So-
to see that argument.
Why? Because an ox, we're following Reb Nassan, of course. Well, no, even we're following Reb Nassan, because according to the Rabbanan, only the getting pushed in only the ox would be chayav, right? He's the one that actually gored to. According to Reb Nassan, then you have to collect from the pit as well, and the person is chayav because he's muad loilam. Is whatever he does, he's going to be chayav. Linyan arba dvarim. What about if it was a person that actually fell into the pit? Now, if the person fell into it wasn't an ox that they pushed into a pit, it was a person. So then there's other payments that you have to pay for the person, the loss of work, and there's the pain and the embarrassment. And well, embarrassment would only be maybe embarrassment, maybe if there was intention there, right? Others, and also the payment if there was a fetus that died. So Adam Chayev Bar Pater. It comes to that, only the person has to pay for those other things, loss of work and doctor bills and all that stuff. But the ox and the pit don't have to pay for that. They only have to pay for, well, actually, they don't have to pay anything. Because if a person falls in to a pit and dies,
Murder.
well, we're not talking about murder. We're talking about damage, gets damaged there. He's Pater, but but he doesn't have to pay for the four things of loss of work and pain and doctor bills. And the ox for sure doesn't. Linyan kaifer shleishim shalevet. If it was a person that died, so kaifer, that's only shor is chayev. Only an ox is chayev for kaifer for that payment. Shleishim shalevet as well as only an ox is chayev for that. Adamu bar pturim, but the person in the pit don't have to pay kaifer. Linyan kalim. If it was vessels that broke, or b'shar p'suli hamikdashim, or it was an animal that was a carbon that was disqualified. So Adam b'shar chayav, and the person and the ox have to pay, but ubar pata, but the bar is going to be pata. Now, why is the bar pata? The Gemara Rava explained, my time, we had this Gemara before. We said that by the pit, it says that the owner of the ox that dies in the pit keeps the carcass, and then the value of the carcass is subtracted off what it was originally, and the owner of the pit only has to pay the difference of the damage because the carcass still has value. Now over here, the carcass has no value because you're not allowed to feed this to an animal because it was a carbon. It's only allowed to be eaten. So therefore, this is exempt from payments in pit. The Memra, is this to say the Pshit Leila Rava, that this is so obvious to Rava? Rava actually had a question about this. The Bay Rava asked, what's the halacha if an ox of a disqualified carbon falls into a pit? What's the halacha? Do we say that that the carcass belongs to the victim? Is this talking about to exclude psuli hamikdashim? Or maybe it's coming to tell me that the owner of the carcass, he's the one that has to remove the carcass from the pit and see what its value is, and then there's going to be, if there's a difference of value between then and when it's stand in court or all of that, it's going to be the problem of the victim. Maybe it's teaching me something else, but maybe you're still chayiv. In other words, I have two possible limudim, two possible implications that are coming out, teachings that could be coming out from Vamesi Alai. Which one is it? Well, so the boy had the pashta. After he asked the question, he then answered it. It's coming to teach me that, in other words, we asked, how could Rava be saying this as a statement? He had this as a question. He said, yeah, I know he had the question. Then he answered it. He said, now it's a statement. And the statement is that a sharp psuli hamikdashim is going to be exempt in the pit. You don't have to pay for that. Where does he know that the owner of the carcass is the guy that has to take it out of the pit? It says twice. One is when an ox scores another ox. It says the carcass belongs to that person, and you only pay the difference between. The other one is ox. It's when an ox falls into a pit. The carcass belongs to the victim. The Gemara now asks, "My chazas b'amesia loy deshar mafkas leila b'ayla metapel benavela." When an ox scores another ox, you told me that the owner of the ox, he's the one that has to deal with the carcass. The owner of the carcass has to deal with the carcass. But if it would have been if he gored a sharp sulam mikdashim, it would be chayev. But when it comes to a pit, you told me that the carcass belongs to him. That means that it's only if a carcass that would actually have value. But if it's a sharp sulam mikdashim would say is exempt. So we're getting totally different halachas from each of these. What's making you say that when an ox scores another ox, it's going to teach me who owns the carcass? When an ox scores an ox by the pit, it's going to tell me that it's only if it was an animal that has value. It says, say it the opposite. I could say it the opposite. So the Gemara says, Mistabra, it's more logical. Potter gabe bar. The ptur is going to be by the pit. Hayel upater by asakalim, because the pit is always exempt when vessels fall in. So if you're going to make one of these two have an exemption, so it's going to be the pit that's going to have that exemption. What's the exemption? That if it's an animal that was an invalid sacrifice, it's going to be exempt as well. Mar says, Adar Rabba, Potter gabe shar. We should say there's an exemption by the ox. Shekain Potter by chatzi nezek. Because by a tam you only have to pay half price. So we should say also that you're also exempt by if it gores a sharp sulam mikdashim, a disqualified sacrifice. Gemara says, well, kula nezek mi'alayashkan. You never find a full exemption by an ox. You only find a half exemption, but by the pit you find a full exemption. So we'll also put by the pit the full exemption of the sharp sulam mikdashim. Go another few minutes. If an ox and its vessels fall in, then you only chayev for the ox, but you putter for the vessels. Masdisen like Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah does not fit with Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev on this kekelim bebar. Rabbi Yehuda says that you're obligated to pay for vessels that are broken in a pit. Okay, my time of the Rabbanan. What's the reason for why the Rabbanan say that you're exempt for the vessels? It falls into the pit. An ox or a donkey. It says an ox, an ox but not a man. A donkey and not the vessels. So we see that you're exempt for vessels that break in a pit. Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? There's a word, shar oy chamar. It says or. It didn't have to say or. Could have said fell into it an ox and a donkey, and we would have understood the or automatically. So oy l'rabis esakalim. The extra oy is coming to include that there's vessels as well that you're going to be chayiv. So we have an inclusion that includes that. The Gemara says, but oy mi bayle lechalik. I'm sorry, v'Rabbanan oy mi bayle lechalik. The Rabbanan say that oy is needed to say that you don't need an ox and a donkey to fall in to be responsible. We would say like this, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't need the oy. The Rabbi Yehuda takes out the oy. The Rabbanan would say, so an ox falls in. We'd say, well, you're still exempt until the donkey falls in. Waiting if the donkey falls in, then I'll pay you. But we don't say that because it says oy. Rabbi Yehuda lechalik mivenafal nafka. Rabbi Yehuda says I can get that it's only dealing with one and not the other. It's either or and not both, because it says v'nafal and it fell in a singular. So the fact that it says v'nafal in a singular, that means that it was only one that fell in. We don't have that in English to say. We don't have. I would need a pronoun to tell me if it's a singular or plural. But in Hebrew, the pronouns are attached to the verb, so it would say v'naflu, right? They fell in. So v'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan say v'nafal tu v'mashma. No, v'nafal could mean referring to multiple things as well. Where do you see that? Rashi quotes a pasuk: Va'asa B'tzalel v'Aliyav. B'tzalel and Aliyav made. And it doesn't say Va'asu, it says Va'asa. And it says Abais Va'maifis. Ba'arivade. We have, Rashi gives a few examples of where you find a singular verb being used for multiple things. Okay. Ema, the Gemara has a question. The Nafal Klal, let's say it's a Klal Prat. Tell in, that's a generality. Shor v'chamar is the prat, is the detail. Klal prat, ein b'chlal ala masha b'prat. Shor v'chamar en midechin alai. Maybe which should only be an actual, because when you have a generality and a detail, we exclude everything else except for those details. And so it should only be an ox or a donkey. Amri, they said, Bala bar yishalim chazar klal. When it says the owner of the pit has to pay, that's a generality again. So what happens now? Klal prat to klal. It becomes a generality specific and a generality. So it's everything that's similar to the detail. Ma prat mefurish bali chayim. Those details are living animals. Afkol bali chayim. So it could be anything living. So it says ima prat mefurish davishan vasim mitama masa. Afkol davishan vasim mitama masa. Avaloi fesloi. What about if a bird fell in? Those two details are specific that they cause impurity by lifting it or by touching it. But a bird that doesn't cause that impurity by lifting it or touching it, I would say that it's exempt if it falls in. How does a bird fall in? And maybe it couldn't fly and it just walked in. It fell in. So the Gemara says, then let it just say one detail if you were trying to exclude the bird. The fact that it says two details, it's coming to include the bird. So it says, Hi Nichtav, which one would you have said? If it would only say the ox, I would say, well, that detail would only be animals that are brought on the altar. Only then you'd be chayav in a pit. Vikas Rachman Chamarif would only say a donkey. I would only say an animal that's the firstborn is sanctified because they have to redeem a firstborn donkey. Ella Amar Kra. Plus it says Vamesi Eloi called over Misa. Anything that dies. Bein Rabbanon. The Kamamaitu Lukalim, Abain Rabbi Yehuda, the Kamarba Lukalim, Kalim B'nei Misaninu. So what about the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yehuda? It doesn't matter. Both of them said that you're exempt from paying for vessels. Why do I need a special exemption to pay for vessels? And Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayav for vessels. Rabbi Yehuda says you're exempt. The Rabbanon say you're exempt for vessels. Why do I need to even go through this? It's not one of the details that's something that dies. The Gemara says no. Amri Shirosan Zuim Misasan. Vessels also die. They when they break, they die. But Rav that says that you only chayev for the bad air, not for the impact. Are vessels dying, breaking from the bad air? They don't die from bad air. The Gemara says, Amri bechadati, we're talking about new vessels, the mafkeme havla, that they die from, that they burst because they weren't in the right temperature. This we need Vamesi Alai. We learned right before that you're telling me Vamesi Alai means that it needs to be something that dies. Dama Rava says sharp sulam mekdashim shnafal bar spotter. How could you learn from this to tell me that only thing that you chayiv in a pit is something that dies or breaks, that dies? But I learned Vamesi Alai to teach me that you're exempt from sharp sulam mekdashim. So to tell me anything that has an owner, you should be chayav for. Even a person or vessels, that should also be chayav for. So here we have it says an ox but not a man, a donkey but not vessels, you're going to be exempt. Rabbi Yehuda the kamar belu kalim, but Rabbi Yehuda that includes kalim bishlam ashar. We don't understand why it says shar because it's telling me that you exclude the man. What do you do with the extra word chamar? Rava says chamar debar Rabbi Yehuda. The word chamar that it says by the pit, according to Rabbi Yehuda, v'seh, and the word sheep, the aveda that it says by the lost object, the l'divrei hakol, according to all opinions, kasha, we do not know what we do with those two words. That's what the Gemara leaves off. That chamar Rabbi Yehuda, we don't have anything that's we're learning from it. And the word seh by aveda, which you have to wait for Baba Metzia to learn that, is we don't know what we learned from that. Okay. You want to learn tonight? I think if we learn tonight, I think we can. at least finish the paragraph. Today's Thursday, right?
Just put it on Zoom,
Okay.
so